Ahsoka Episode 5 confirmed to us that Jacen Syndulla can indeed use the Force. Earlier in the season, he's expressed to his mum that he wants to be a Jedi one day, and we believed him because just like his late father Kanan Jarrus, he too is Force sensitive. On Cetos, Jacen could hear the world between worlds, where Ahsoka was fighting Anakin. He could so vividly hear the lightsabers clashing. But there was a moment where he asked his mum to really listen and see if she could hear what he could. So she closes her eyes and tries to hear it. And now many are making the assumption that Hera Syndulla is also Force sensitive. Is it true? Well, not exactly. You see, Dave Filoni made a huge statement 2 episodes ago in the conversation between Ahsoka and Sabine that the Force is exactly as George Lucas described it once upon a time. Anyone can tap into it, as the Force resides in all living beings. The way I see it, there are 3 possibilities in this scene. Either Jacen was facilitating his mum hearing the world between worlds, Hera cannot use the Force, but she is connecting to it the way all living beings can, or third, she tried to, realized that she couldn't, and just trusted her son because she knows that he does have the Force. In other words, she just went along with it, as any mother would, because she knows herself that she cannot use the Force. Also note that if there's a chance she did tap into it, Cetos itself, especially the ocean, is a vergence in the Force, a gateway. So even those that are not very Force sensitive can be way more perceptive than they otherwise would at a place like this. Personally, my dear friends, I buy into the idea that Hera was aided by Jacen, but some are still adamant that she can use the Force, so let's explore this possibility. This is something that we've seen earlier in the show when Star Wars fans were arguing about Sabine Wren's Force sensitivity, but I never expected this far into Ahsoka at this stage of the season we'd be talking about if Hera Syndulla was Force sensitive like her son. So many facets of the Force remain a mystery, even those who have learned to wield it since a very young age, like the Jedi or Sith. This series is breaking our assumptions. Even non-Force sensitive characters had moments where it appeared as though they were tapping into the Force, and Hera is no exception, even if she is not a Force sensitive, and maybe now her son Jacen, and in spirit form Kanan Jarrus, can facilitate such a connection. For Hera Syndulla, she is one of the best pilots in the Star Wars galaxy. She is a born leader, empathetic, loyal. All of these traits might be amplified by the Force. While Hera Syndulla might not be Force sensitive, someone name dropped in this scene that is Leia Organa. And at this point in the video, I want to talk about the connections between Hera Syndulla and Leia and why the latter is so important to the show, despite the fact she has not yet made an appearance, and I say yet for a very specific reason. Keep in mind Leia was in Star Wars Rebels, she knows the Ghost Crew, and she's got a vested interest in protecting her friend Hera Syndulla, and that is why she's covering for her. Let's get into all of it. In Ahsoka Episode 5, we got an incredible name drop thanks to Carson Teva. He tells Hera Syndulla that in her absence, General Leia Organa has been covering for her at New Republic headquarters. Rumours of a Leia appearance in Ahsoka have been around for months now, and I'm wondering, are we eventually going to see her in this season, either deepfaked or recast? Now, in case you don't know, Leia is pivotal to the New Republic at this time, both in Heir to the Empire, but also in Star Wars canon. Although in canon, many details about her earlier years in the New Republic following the Battle of Endor are very much unknown. Thanks to Battlefront 2, some comics, and the novel Lost Stars, we can piece together a bigger picture. But the majority of her story that we know about in the New Republic comes from later in the timeline, just before she starts the Resistance. But that doesn't happen for another 17 years. What we do know about Leia at this time is that she shares a lot of similarities with Hera Syndulla, the general she's covering for, and that may give her a bit more sympathy, a bit more understanding for why Hera Syndulla's gone off and prioritized her family issues in an unauthorized mission. You see, at this time, Han and Leia have their son Ben Solo, who eventually grows up to be Kylo Ren. He is a bit younger than Jacen, but both General Organa and General Syndulla have young sons, both which are Force sensitive. So if we do see Leia in this series, I'm hoping we also see a young Ben and Han Solo as well, his dad. Now, it's very important to note some similarities between Jacen Syndulla and Ben Solo. In Legends, there was a Jacen Solo who became Darth Caedus. Jacen was one of the Solo twins, Leia and Han's twins, Jaina and Jacen. And Jacen's apprentice was Ben Skywalker, Jacen and Ben, and here in canon we have a different Jacen and a different Ben, but it's worth noting, both these characters were named and inspired by their Legends counterparts. Jacen Syndulla was named after Jacen Solo, and for this reason many fans think, because he's Force sensitive, is he going to go down a path of training as a Jedi and then eventually turn to the dark? But I think it's the opposite. I can see Jacen Syndulla being part of Luke Skywalker's academy, befriending Ben Solo, and we know that Ben is the one who turns to the dark side and has his mind twisted by Snoke. Who knows what's going to happen to Jacen? I don't think Dave Filoni even knows. And in canon, at this stage, Leia already gave up training with Luke. We know this from The Rise of Skywalker. But during her early pregnancy, she could sense her unborn son through the Force. She likened his presence to a pulsing, living band of light. Sometimes that light dimmed, and other times it was like a vein of darkness. And when Ben Solo was young, around the time of the Ahsoka show, he could sense his mother's emotions, because they were both Force sensitive. In the case of Hera and Jacen, as far as we know, only Jacen has the Force. Leia ended her apprenticeship with Luke after having a vision that her Jedi path would end with the death of her son, fulfilled in Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I would love to see Leia and Han in a New Republic meeting at the end of this show. I don't know if they're going to do it and if it was just a name drop, but how awesome would that be? We do know of some other contributing factors that I'm not going to mention in this video. I know not everyone wants to be spoiled, that kind of hint at the fact that she might make a small cameo. But aside from her son, Leia is very important to the New Republic government, and this is a very rocky time for them. They're still trying to work through various policies. Leia was one of those voices that very early on was trying to warn them that just because they won the Battle of Endor, things could very much still go wrong. She was at Naboo when Operation Cinder came in full force. She understands the danger the Imperial Remnant poses, and later in the timeline she's one of the first voices to warn the First Order is about to rise. So in the context of Ahsoka, she's one of the voices of reason, and also probably one of the few who believes Hera Syndulla about the return of Grand Admiral Thrawn, despite Mon Mothma not taking it seriously. The only problem is, eventually a lot of members of the New Republic turned against her when they found out she was the daughter of Darth Vader. This is further in the timeline though, and she would eventually withdraw from the election and resign from the New Republic Senate, realizing this was not the government she'd hoped it would be, and she didn't feel as though they were fit enough to deal with the threat of what would be the First Order, and that's why she started the Resistance. But at this time, she is still working very hard, trying to make the New Republic work, and also trying to help Mon Mothma. The two had a very deep friendship. Leia was a skilled diplomat and politician. She served as a member of the Galactic Senate and became a prominent leader at this time of the New Republic government, attending regular meetings, which is what Carson Teva is teasing. Now that we assume Hera Syndulla's in trouble, given that she went ahead with the unauthorized mission, Carson Teva helped her, and he, by the way, is a very important character who I want to talk about in a separate video. I think as her friend, Leia Organa is going to help her clear her name. But what do you guys think? Let me know down below. I want to hear from you, my amazing Mandalorians. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.